صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. ثانيا على حب الزهراء. ثالثا على حب أمير المؤمنين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. Brothers and sisters, I want to congratulate you all on the auspicious occasion of the wiladat of Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam. Brothers and sisters, just a few housekeeping announcements. Please let us try, as always, to keep the noise level down to a minimum. If you have to go into the mother's room with your children, please do so. Try to keep your children with you at all times, and for us to keep the noise level down as much as possible. We're going to start with a short Quran recitation, followed by an announcement, a lecture by Samahat Shiekh Moutaz, and then some anashid and afrah to end. So I'd like to welcome up Brother Hadi Asghar Zadeh for a short recitation of the Holy Quran. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الأبرار يشربون من كأس كان مزاجها كافورا عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا. يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا. يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Ahsant, Brother Hadi, for that beautiful recitation of the Holy Quran. I'd like to welcome up next Brother Muhammad Rashid for a short announcement. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to start off by congratulating you all on the birth anniversary of our second holy Imam, Imam Al-Hassan Al-Mustafa alayhi salam. Alhamdulillah, this year, as well as the past years, we were given the honor to host the mu'mineen and mu'minat here for the holy nights of Ramadan. And as you all know, Al-Mustafa Academy is not only a religious center, but also a school, a Sunday school, as well as a second home for many of the youth. And with all these different branches in Al-Mustafa being ran, comes alongside many recurring fees to keep the center running. We encourage our community members to donate during this holy month, and we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings back to you tenfold the reward, inshallah. And with that being said, we do have the nights 25th to 30th of Ramadan available for sponsoring, inshallah. So if anyone is interested in sponsoring iftar for those nights, please do approach myself, Brother Wahid, Brother Sayyid Muhsin, or anyone else in the committee team, and inshallah, we'll be able to give you all the details. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Ahsant, Brother Muhammad. We're going to continue on with the remainder of the lecture. I'd just like to ask all the brothers and sisters to try to come forward as much as they possibly can. رحم الله من ذكر القائم من آل Muhammad. Please join me in welcoming Samahat al-Sheikh Moutaz al-Wehwah with three of your loudest salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
إلى أرواح موتى المؤمنين وموتى الحاضرين، إلى أرواح مراجعنا العظام لا سيما السيد الإمام روح الله الموسوي الخميني، إلى أرواح شهدائنا شهداء الإسلام، شهداء الدفاع المقدس، شهداء على طريق القدس. رحم الله من قرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبا القاسم محمد عليه وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين، روح وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفدا، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين منذ آدم إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you. قال تعالى في محكم التنزيل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا أنصار الله كما قال عيسى ابن مريم للحواريين من أنصاري إلى الله؟ قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله. فآمنت طائفة من بني إسرائيل وكفرت طائفة فأيدنا الذين آمنوا على عدوهم فأصبحوا ظاهرين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah As-Saf, O you who believe, be helpers in the cause of Allah, as Isa son of Maryam said to his disciples, who are my helpers in the cause of Allah? The disciples said, we are helpers in the cause of Allah. So a party of the children of Israel believed, and another party disbelieved. Then we aided those who believed against their enemy, and they became uppermost. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. We send our congratulations to the Imam of our time, Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif, and to our esteemed Maraja, and to you brothers and sisters on the auspicious occasion of the anniversary of the birth of Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, Salamullahi alayh. This Imam, the second of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhum as-salam, who is as oppressed in his lifetime and after his death, he is as oppressed in his death as he was in his lifetime. We unfortunately tend to not do Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam justice, and there isn't an amount of remembrance or an amount of commemoration that can do this Imam salamullahi alayhi justice. This Imam, who the very essence of our religion was preserved by. This Imam, who is an essential pillar of the deen of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhum as-salatu was-salam. Salli ala Muhammad. Salamullahi alayhi, being the first grandson of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And in the narration that when he was born, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam held off on naming him before the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. When asked, why did you not know him? He said, I do not precede the Holy Messenger in anything. So he awaited the coming of the Holy Messenger. And when he sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam came and he asked Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, what did you name him? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I do not precede you in anything. I have waited for you to come and to name him. And the Holy Messenger says, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and I do not precede my God in anything. So he awaited for Jibreel alayhi salam to descend upon him sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and say to him that Allah Ta'ala has named him Al-Hasan. So even the naming of the Imam Salamullahi alayhi is a wahi, is a revelation revealed upon the heart of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. God himself named this child. God himself dignified him, Salamullahi alayhi, with the very basic of existences, which is the name. And just as Allah Ta'ala bestowed the name upon him, Allah Ta'ala bestowed upon him the learned, the knowledge of the prophets of Allah Ta'ala and the wisdom of the prophets of Allah Ta'ala. The merits and the stations of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam are many, and you've heard most of them. What we tend to ignore, however, is Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam's wisdom at the time of the fitna, and taking lessons from the believers and the enemies of the Imam alayhi salam at the time of the fitna of Imam al-Hasan salamullah. What Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam established during his khilafah set forth the pace for what unraveled on the day of Ashura in the year 61 after Hijrah. The first shaheed of Ashura was Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. What led to the martyrdom of he, Salamullahi alayhi, established the groundwork and the foundations for the army which was raised against his brother Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And unfortunately, most of the accusations against al-Hasan alayhi salam didn't come from his adversaries. Rather, it came from those who claimed to be his Shia. On his birth, inshallah, one or two of these misconceptions we would like to clarify. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. First of all, the misconception that Al-Hasan alayhi salam was not brave like his father and his brothers. That he, Salamullahi alayhi, leaned more towards diplomacy. And in fact, the greater accusation that he, Salamullahi alayhi, compromised the religion of Allah Ta'ala for the sake of diplomacy and handed over the reins of this ummah to the most wretched of Allah's creation, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. And this could not be further from the truth. If we look at the seerah of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, we will see that he, Salamullahi alayhi, not only was he brave, but he, Salamullahi alayhi, was distinguished on the battlefield. You've all heard of the Battle of Jamal, for example, or the War of Jamal, Harb al-Jamal, right? And we've heard how bloody this fitna was, and how many Muslims and companions of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam were martyred or killed in this battle because of the fitna of the woman. And how fierce the fighting was between the Muslims at this time. You see, during this battle, and why it was known by the name of Al-Jamal, was because the woman at that time attended the battle or came to the battle on the back of a black camel. And our narrations say to us that this camel had some sort of a sorcerous effect on the soldiers of the woman. They rallied around this camel. Some of our narrations suggest that it is as if its breathing, its breath, was that of Iblis. And that the people around the woman would take energy and be encouraged to continue fighting by rallying around the camel. So Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he comes to the decision and he gives the order And he says to the believers and the soldiers in his army, if we want to end this battle, we need to get to the camel. Get to the camel and kill it. And several of his commanders, they attempt to get to the camel and then they come back up until the banner is given to Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He leads a small troop towards the camel of the woman. Clashes take place. He ends up being injured in this, and then he and his soldiers retreat. As he is retreating, Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, fed up with the situation, single-handedly, our narration says, takes the spear from the hand of Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, breaks through the ranks of the army of the woman, gets to the camel and drives the spear right into the heart of this camel, ending the battle. He, salamullahi alayhi, on this day, this one strike of the camel saves the Muslims from further bloodshed and ends the fitna. You know, there's a narration that the Amma, our brothers and sisters from other Muslim denominations use, that the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi says that this son of mine, Al-Hasan, will solve a dispute between two groups of Muslims. They held it and they carried it and they applied it to Sulh al-Hasan alayhi salam with Muawiyah la'natullah. Our ulama say no, this is not the fitna that he quells. The fitna was quelled on the day of Jamal. The day Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam ended the bloodshed between Muslims on the day of Jamal and led to the defeat of the woman. And for this reason we see that the woman kept hatred in her heart for Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam up until his death, to the extent that she commanded that he not be buried next to the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi as he intended. And rather she sent troops to shower his coffin with arrows. Salamullahi alayhi, he carries on from his father Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in his campaign against Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Initially, when he salamullahi alayhi took the reins of Khilafah, history says to us he had a very large army, an extremely large army. And that this army, had it marched on Damascus, it would have driven Muawiyah out of power. But Muawiyah, being the manipulative, sly and cunning individual he was, knew that militarily at that point he could not defeat Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. Just as the woman could not defeat Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. So Muawiyah employed different tactics. Muawiyah found a hole in the ranks of Imam al-Hasan's army. And this hole can be found in any single one of us, brothers and sisters. He finds that in the army of Al-Hasan alayhi salam, there are many who are attached to this dunya. Hubb al-dunya. Through this love for dunya, Muawiyah begins to buy the generals in the army of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. To the point Muawiyah was able to buy one of his generals and have him attempt to assassinate al-Hasan alayhi salam. Salamullahi alayhi reaches a point where he has no army. He has no army. Not only does he not have an army, but those that remain, they do not have the aqeedah that they are supposed to have. They do not have this absolute submission to their Imam. They question their Imam. They answer back to their Imam. They make recommendations and suggestions. And then when the Imam Salamullahi alayhi makes a decision, if they don't like this decision, they abandon the Imam alayhi salam. And we see this in the verse that we opened up with regarding Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, who we are still on. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In this verse and several verses similar to it, Allah Ta'ala speaks of an announcement or an offer that Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam makes to Banu Israel. He says to them, Man ansari ila Allah. The verse says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kunu ansar Allah kama qala Isa ibn Maryam lil hawariyina man ansari ila Allah. O you who believe, be helpers unto Allah Ta'ala. Just as Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam called upon the disciples and said to them, Who amongst you are my helpers to Allah? And the disciples said to Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, We are your disciples. Now look what happens. A group of them agrees and they say to to Isa alayhi salam that we are your helpers towards Allah. We are Ansarullah. Not Ansarullah in Yemen. Inshallah, they are also in this category, but Ansarullah in general. Okay? Those who were with Isa alayhi salam after this declaration said, We will be your helpers. Now here Allah Ta'ala splits the ranks of the believers of Banu Israel. Here He says, فآمنت طائفة من بني إسرائيل وكفرت طائفة. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, when Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam came looking for Ansar, Allah Ta'ala now splits the ranks of the believers. He says those that went with Isa ibn Maryam, those who agreed to be the helpers of Allah Ta'ala, those who submitted to the word of Isa, those who submitted to the commands of Isa, these are the mu'mineen. آمَنَ طَائِفَةٌ مِّن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. Those who questioned Isa. Those who were overly opinionated. Those who wanted things done their own way, although in their hearts believers in Allah Ta'ala, and maybe even believers in the prophethood of Isa alayhi salam. Allah Ta'ala describes them as وَكَفَرَ الطَّائِفَةِ. And they were amongst those who committed kufr. They fell out of the fold of Iman. We take from this example and the example in the life of Imam Al-Hasan alayhi salam, those that stood in the face of Al-Hasan alayhi salam when he saw it was in the best interest of this ummah to enter into an agreement with Muawiyah, and hurled accusations at Imam Al-Hasan alayhi salam. He would walk in the streets and they would say, Assalamu alayka ya mudhilla al-mu'mineen. They would call him the one who had disgraced the believers. We see that this in the Holy Quran and in the history of the Holy Prophets and the Imams alayhum salam, this only happens after the bayyinah has been given. After Allah Ta'ala has sent you the clear proofs and the clear signs. After whoever Allah Ta'ala has put in charge there, after He has made the call to arms, Allah Ta'ala then and only then splits the ranks of the people. And this is to teach us, brothers and sisters, two things. First of all, that love for this dunya can compromise your religion. Even if you have a proper aqeedah. Even if your aqeedah is 100%. Even if your jurisprudence is 100%. If you have not detached the heart from the dunya, you are not only a danger to yourself, but you are a danger to your imam. And you can be bought. And I love to use this example because we mentioned the story of Al-Jamal. But just to show you how hubb ad-dunya can take you from the highest of ranks and throw you in the lowest of pits. There is a companion of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, who was also a cousin. ثاني على حب الزهراء. This companion is also a cousin of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Al-Zubayr, many of you have heard his name. Al-Zubayr was one of the pioneers of Islam. He is one of the first to accept Islam at a very young age. He migrates twice. He migrates to Abyssinia with Ja'far alayhi salam, and then he migrates to Medina to join the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And he takes part in every campaign of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Every single campaign. He is a champion on the day of Badr. And our narrations say to us he was only 14 or 15 years of age. Then he was a champion on the day of Uhud. In fact, on the day of Uhud, when everybody fled and left the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi alone, some of our narrations say it was only Az-Zubayr and Ali alayhi salam that remained to defend the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi on the day of Uhud. When the fitna of Saqifa happens, Az-Zubayr is one of the 5 who remains steadfast and stands with Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. More than this, on the day of the attack on the house of Fatima alayha salam, Az-Zubayr is the only one to draw his sword on that day and defend Fatima alayha salam. And when he is dragged to give bay'ah to the first Khalif, he is the only one who had to have his neck and hands tied and his hand forced into the hand of the first Khalif for bay'ah. He is the only one that whilst being forced to give bay'ah, he is singing the praises of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and denouncing the first 2 and reminding them of the merits of Ali alayhi salam. You see how great of a status Az-Zubayr has. But something interesting happens while this bay'ah is being forced from Az-Zubayr. One of the companions there, as Az-Zubayr is talking, he says, "Put your voice down. For I heard the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi mention the hypocrites, and by Allah you are amongst them." The companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam didn't say much. Salman later on narrates, he says, "I went to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and I said to him, Ya Mawlai, is this true? Did you hear the Holy Messenger? Just as this companion claimed, who stated that Az-Zubayr is amongst the hypocrites." Salman radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, he says, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam nods. He says, "I saw the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi on the day that the son of Az-Zubayr, Abdullah, was born. And he saw Az-Zubayr holding Abdullah and he was happy with him. And he says to him, Ya Zubayr, do you love him?" He says to him, "Yes." And he says, "Halak Az-Zubayr. Az-Zubayr is today destroyed. Through this son, he will be destroyed." When Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam takes the reins of Khilafah, Zubayr, who was a staunch supporter of Ali alayhi salam, sees that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam has given offices to others except for him. So he comes to Ali alayhi salam and he says to him, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, where is my position? You have not granted me any office." Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says to him, those who are worthy of it or those who are befitting of it have taken it. Now Zubayr is filled with rage. Filled with rage. This Ali, who I stood with and I defended and I supported, and his cousin Muhammad, who I fought side by side with. I gave my entire life to the service of Ali. When he received the Khilafah, he gave Malik al-Ashtar a position. He gave Salman, the Persian, a position. And me, his own cousin, he gives me nothing. He goes and he puts his hand in the hand of the woman. As Zubayr goes from being the staunchest supporter of Ali because of Hubb al-Dunya, the staunchest supporter of Ali alayhi salam, he goes all the way to being the commander of the army on the day of Jamal. He commands an army against Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Look at this. Because of Hubb al-Dunya. Now the prophecy needs to unveil. Zubayr stands at the head of the army, and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is calling out for mubaraza. He is calling out for those who wish to duel. Come forward, fight me. Bring your champions and fight me. History says as Zubayr is going back and forth in front of the army on his horse, the woman says to Abdullah, Zubayr's son, she says to him, go to your father and say to him, do you still fear Ali ibn Abi Talib? Say it to him in front of his soldiers. Abdullah takes his horse and in front of the army, he says to his father, what is the matter, father? Do you still fear your cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Do you still fear Bani Hashim? He touched on his ego, right? Zubayr says, me, I'm afraid of Ali. Give me my sword, give me my horse. Takes his sword, takes his horse, and marches and rides right towards the army of Ali alayhi salam. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he knows Zubayr. He knows Zubayr is not going to fight him. He says to his army, when he gets here, no one touch him. Just split ranks, let him go. He continues to ride. When he gets to the army split and he continues into the desert. One of the soldiers of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam joining the battle, they find Az-Zubayr, they kill him to show you the status of Az-Zubayr. When they bring the sword of Az-Zubayr to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the companions say that the Amir held the sword and he seemed distressed. And they said to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why are you distressed? This is the enemy of Allah. He says to them, Wehwah, be careful. Do you know how many times I saw this sword drive away hardships from the face of Rasulullah sallallahu? But this hubb al-dunya, the love of this dunya, drove Az-Zubayr to become the commander in the army fighting Amir al-Mu'mineen. When we are called to be helpers towards Allah Ta'ala, when we are called into the service of Allah Azza wa Jal, it is imperative that you and I discard this dunya. It is imperative that you and I divorce the dunya as Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam did. Because if I have love and attachment to this dunya, the enemies of Allah can use this love and use it to turn me against my Imam. At the time of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, it wasn't only those who took money from Muawiyah who harmed al-Hasan alayhi salam, but it was those who had love for their own pride and their own ego who remained in the camp of Al-Hasan alayhi salam, but because of their pride and their ego, they thought they knew more than their Imam. They thought they knew better than their Imam. So when their Imam would say to them, fight, they would say to him, peace. And when he said to them, peace, they said to him, you should fight. Being Ansarullah today, being those who have answered the call of Imam Sahib al-Asri wal Zaman today, it is imperative that I understand that I must not jeopardize the mission of my Imam. One of my teachers used to say to us that it is recommended, our narrations, they recommend, and it tells us that we must continuously pray for the hastening of the reappearance. And that we must constantly ask Allah Ta'ala to bring the advent of the Imam closer. But he used to say to us, but be very careful. Be extremely careful when you do this. This is not a small prayer that you are praying. And that sin in the absence of the Imam is not like sin in the presence of the Imam. Being weak in the absence of the Imam is not like being weak in the presence of the Imam. Being tired in the absence of the Imam is not like being tired in the advent of the Imam. Enjoying the dunya in the absence of the Imam is not like enjoying the dunya during the advent of the Imam. Be very careful, he used to say to us. Because brothers and sisters, before you and I, there were those who called for the hastening of their Imam. The people of Kufa, they were Shia, they were believers like you and I, inshallah. And they would write day and night to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Hasten towards us, O son of Fatima. Bring us relief. Bring us relief. Save us from Yazid and the tyranny of Yazid. We are with you. We are with you. But when he came, when the Imam answered their call, where were they? The excuses we have given to the Imam alayhi salam, some of them so audacious. We have one of these individuals, his name is Ad-Dahhak. This Ad-Dahhak, he meets the Imam alayhi salam on the way to Karbala. Ad-Dahhak, he's with his cousin. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam says to him, have you come to give us your sword? Have you come as a helper towards Allah Ta'ala? He says to him, look, I'm a lover. There's a long conversation between the Imam and Dahhak, but we bring it down a bit. He says, I'm a lover. I love Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. I love you, Ya Hussein. But I have a wife and kids in Kufa. And I have businesses. I'll tell you what I will do. I will stand with you, Ya Hussein, up until and for as long as there is someone else with me. When you are alone, Assalamu alaikum. Do you allow this for me? Hussein alayhi salam says to him, come. Imagine this. On the day of Ashura, when all of the companions are killed, Ad-Dahhak has the audacity to come to Al-Hussein alayhi salam and say to him, you promised me. You promised me you would let me go. Imam alayhi salam says to him, I'm a man of my promise, leave. You know what Ad-Dahhak does? What would you do? What would you do in this instance? Al-Hussein is all by himself. And it's just you and him. Dahhak leaves. He leaves. He turns his back and he leaves. He hears the Imam calling out, Hal min nasir yansurani? And he leaves. He goes back to his wife and kids in Kufa and his businesses. We need to be very careful that when we are calling for the advent of the Imam, our hearts are prepared for his advent. So that when he does arrive, I am a helper to the Imam. I am an assistant for the Imam. I am a sword in the hand of the Imam and not a sword against the Imam. If you are not ready, you jeopardize the very life of your Imam. If you are not ready, you jeopardize the very mission. You put others around you in jeopardy. Yes, we must continue to pray for the Advent, but at the same time, we need to make sure that our hearts are prepared before this Advent. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us amongst those who are prepared for the Advent of the Imam before his coming. And we are amongst those who are helpers in preparing the earth for his coming. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واهلك عدوهم. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة بمحمد وعترته الطاهرة صلواتك عليه وعليهم أجمعين.
Ahsant, Maulana, ahsant. Brothers and sisters, just before I invite our next guest, inshallah, just a brief announcement for the sisters. We are planning on having another Q&A session exclusively for the ladies tomorrow night, inshallah. So please do try your best to attend with Samahat al-Sheikh Moutaz. It is his last night, his last day with us tomorrow. So please stay tuned for some more details on the AMA page as well as the LYC page. Without further ado, I would like to welcome up our beloved Mullah Mustafa Al-Husaynawi with three of your loudest salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Respected brothers and sisters, my elders in Islam, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If I could just request all the youth, the youngsters to just come as forward as you can. Just come as forward as you can. Yalla Ja'far, come. Yalla, I'm gonna call you by name. Hadi, yalla, come. Kirkum, all of you guys. Santum, barakallah fikum. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Now عذب الله أمي إنها لعذب الله أمي إنها شربت حب الوصي وغدتني باللبن حب الوصي وغدتني باللبن وكان لي والد يهوى أبا حسن فصرت من ذي وذا فصرت من ذي وذا أهوى أبا حسن صلوات. MashaAllah, that's beautiful. أنا حبي حسن وغرامي حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن. أنا حبي حسن وغرامي حسن مولى حسن. أنا حبي حسن مي حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن. أنا حبي وغرامي مولى مولى حسن. أنا حبي حسن وغرامي حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن. أنا لا أبوح بسره وأنا المقاد لأمره. أنا لا أبوح بسره وأنا المقاد لأمره. أجد النوال ببحره أجد النوال ببحره. أنا روحي حسن أنا روحي أنا روحي أنا روحي وأنا حبي وأنا حبي مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن. أنا حبي حسن غرامي حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن. أنا حبي وغرامي وغرامي وغرامي. My love is my love is my love is my love is مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن. Ah, there is no one like him, son of Ali. There is no one like him, son of Ali. He is the king of generosity. From him I learned patience, piety. From him I learned patience, piety. All my faith is Hassan. All my faith is. All my faith is. My love 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 is. My faith is. My faith is. مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى يلا إليك مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى مولى. When they ask me who is king of men, I point to Hussein and toward Hassan. When they ask me who is king of men, I point to Hussein and toward Hassan. I raise my hands and I ask him when. I raise my hands and I ask him when. My Imam is Hassan. My Imam is. My Imam is. My love is. My love is. My love is مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن. أنا حبي حسن وغرامي حسن مولى حسن مولى حسن مولى. علي شاه علي ما علي شاه علي ما علي را علي ما علي نصر من الله. علي زمزم هرد الأودا. علي حسن حسین است. علي عین یقین است. علي حبل متین است. علي ماء مبین است. بکوری تو دشم دشمنان است. فقط حیدر امیر المؤمنین است. فقط حیدر فقط حیدر امیر المؤمنین است. علی شاه علی ما علی را علی شاه علی ما علی را علی رمز من الله. علی حسن حسین است. علی ما علی شاه علی را علی نصر من الله. علی زمزم هر دل آدا. علی حسن حسین است. علی عین یقین است. علی حبل متین است. علی مائل مبین است. بکوری دو چشم دشمنانش. فقط حیدر امیر المؤمنین است. فقط حیدر فقط حیدر امیر المؤمنین است. دو صلوات على محمد وعلى آل محمد. صلوات وصلوات على محمد وعلى آل محمد. بنبي عربي ورسول مدني وأخي أسد الله مسمى بعلي وبزهراء بتول وبأم ولدتها وبسبطيه وشبليه هما نجل زكي. وصلوات على محمد وصلوات على محمد. louder. وصلوات على محمد. وبسجاد وبالباقر والصادق حقا وبموسى وعلي وتقي ونقي وبالعسكر والحجة القائم المهدي صلوات. This is a traditional Iraqi, we call it hosat, inshallah. ها خوتي ها خوتي نهني الطاهر الزهرة بحسنها. نهني الطاهرة بزهرة بحسنها. شبه جد النبي عزها وفخرها. وشبل حيدر علي أول ولدها. وشبل حيدر علي أول ولدها. وها خوتها وها شيعها. الله ميلاد منور دنيانا ميلاد مدور دنيانا ميلاد مدور دنيانا ميلاد. صبت خير البشر وابن الزكية. وصبت خير البشر وابن الزكية. ويا ابن حيدر علي حامل حمية. يهل ميلادك بهاي المسية. ويهل ميلادك بهاي المسية. وها خوتها ها شيعها. هالليلة باسمك نحييها الليلة باسمك نحييها الليلة باسمك نحييها الليلة. آخر بيت ونسألكم الدعاء إن شاء الله. هناك هناك سيطر التفتيش منصوبة على المعبر. وبالمعبر نعرف الناس البين الأصلي والمزور. وهن ياله وهن ياله وهن يال الجوائز اللي ختم المرتضى. وهن يال الجوائز اللي ختم المرتضى. وهن يال الجوائز اللي ختم المرتضى. وهن يال الجوائز اللي بختم المرتضى. ها خوتها شيعها ها حسينها. هنيال الحيدر واضيله هنيال الحيدر واضيله هنيال الحيدر واضيله هنيال الحيدر ماضيله. You want one more? One more يلا. Magic water. وهنياله هناك سيطر التفتيش منصوبة على المابار، وبالمعبر نعرف الناس البين الأصلي والمزور، وهنيال الجواز البي ختم المرتضى حيدر، وهنيال الجواز البي ختم المرتضى. ها خوتي ها خوتي ها، هنيال الحيدر واضيله، هنيال الحيدر واضيله، هنيال الحيدر واضيله، هنيال الحيدر واضيله، هنيال الحيدر ماضيله. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Let us all please rise for ziyarah, inshallah. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت، وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم جميعا. السلام على الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. الصلاة والسلام عليك سيدي ومولاي يا صاحب العصر والزمان، وخليفة الرحمن وإمام الإنس والجن. عجل الله تعالى فرجه، وسهل الله تعالى مخرجا وظهورا. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. يا مدبر الأمور، يا باعث من في القبور، يا مجري الفحول، يا ملين الحديد لداود، صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله بالدين والدنيا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
Ahsant Mullah. Brothers and sisters, that concludes our program for tonight, inshallah. There are some sweets, I believe on the sister's side, the brother's side. Outside? They're outside? Okay. I've been told that they've been put outside. For the sisters, for tomorrow, inshallah, for the Q&A with the Sheikh, it will be after the program. So if you would like to stick around after the program tomorrow night, inshallah, that will be the Q&A time for the ladies. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.